Hello and welcome to the call. My name is Erin Fugate, and I'm one of the founding members of the Visionary Leaders Collective. This is our Wednesday community call, and we welcome you here. If you're brand new, please put that in the chat so we can say hello if this is your first or second or third. If you're new to the call, we just want to know. And I'm going to pull up my screen to share a few announcements, and then we'll dive into our beautiful panel discussion. So we are the Visionary Leaders Collective, and we welcome you here. We are all about honoring the gifts of the earth, and the gifts of the earth have brought us these beautiful essential oils and many of the herbs and supplements that we use as well. We have a gift for you, and it is a gorgeous website called hellovisionary.life, where we have tons and tons of education for you. You can go down through our webinar archive and learn about everything from hormones to pet care to new mom and baby care, just everything you can imagine. Then we have business education. If you're starting your doTERRA business, I recommend looking at the 4 simple steps, but we have lots of resources there for you. And then of course, the website is where you get the community call recordings. You're on the community call right now. It's every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. If you want to get text alerts for our calls and webinars, that's a really good idea. You get a 30-minute text reminder before we're about to do something. And you just text all one word, Hello Visionary, to the number 833-359-0069. Our upcoming calls for this 10 a.m. Wednesday community call are going to be really great. Today we have a panel helping us prepare for a spring cleanse. March 2nd, we'll be doing a group share of our pearls, tips, and hacks for the product of the month. So once you find out the product of the month, be prepared with your favorite tip, hack, or pearl to share with the community. March 9th, Dr. Louise Rose will be talking to us about seasonal allergy preparation and support, which I'm already starting to feel the need for because the blossoms and the blooms are here. March 16th, we'll be doing non-toxic cleaning with Daniela Ross. We have regular events every week. My favorite one is our introduction to doTERRA essential oils, Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m. I have a challenge for all of you. Can you set the intention and challenge yourself to bring at least one person to the class next week on Tuesday at 5:30 p.m.? Just drop a heart in the comments if you're accepting that challenge. Let's have a whole bunch of people learn about essential oils next week. Of course, we have the community call every Wednesday at 10 a.m. We have a work party Mondays at 4 p.m. with Nikki Dean and Lindsay Bodo if you'd like some friends while you do your doTERRA DMO. First Monday at 5 p.m., doTERRA puts on a webinar, and it is really awesome. Check that out. And then the third Monday at 10 a.m., we have Oils A to Z with Ariana Harley and friends. You can get all these events and more at hellovisionary.life/events. Just look at our events calendar. So today we have an incredible panel of very knowledgeable individuals, all with a super unique perspective on the body, essential oils, and our beautiful herbal supplements. We have Dr. Louise Rose, a naturopathic physician living in Portland, Oregon. We have Vivian Ingleson, a licensed acupuncturist, and she lives in Ashland, Oregon, and also practices in LA, Los Angeles, California. We have Asha McLaughlin, yoga teacher, health coach. She is one of the practitioners leading the spring cleanse this year. And Contessa Beth, who lives in Brooklyn, New York, but this picture is of her in the wild in Washington State. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Josie because she will be leading the panel discussion. So take it away, Josie.
Thank you, Erin. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome all our guests. And I'm going to change my view, do people know how to do that up in the right-hand corner? Make sure that we'll have a couple slides in some of the presentations, but in general, I'm changing my view to gallery rather than speaker, so we can have more of a feeling of our panel, because we're going to be talking, have little slides and then talking back. And we wanted to bring everyone together today in this idea of, like, you've maybe been hearing and seen on all our different websites and our Facebook pages that we're going to be doing a cleanse next month. And it's spring and people talk about that in spring. And so we wanted to just cover all of the different aspects of why. Why do you want to cleanse? What's it about? What is the best way to do that? Why do we focus on spring in so many of the different traditions with cleansing? And getting people ready for that and connected to the plants and the medicine that we are going to be working with. So I'm going to start first. I'd like to ask Dr. Louise Rose to start us off. And Louise, can you kind of give us, I'd like for everyone to set the stage with kind of like, why do we want to cleanse? And the preparation around that in the big picture of cleansing, and why is it necessary? Like we sort of say, hey, you guys, we're starting on March 14th. The prep call is on March 12th. But we want everyone to buy their stuff now and kind of begin with some things like the Lifelong Vitality Pack. Like, what is that about? So I'm going to hand that over to you.
Great. Thanks, Josie. Thanks for having me here. Has anybody ever done a new diet or a cleanse or anything, and leading up to it, instead of prepping for it, you actually binge on all the foods that you're gonna give up? That's like the setup to have a really uncomfortable first week of your cleanse, unfortunately. If you amplify all your inflammatory foods and then you take them all away, you're really going to be unhappy camper. So I just want to give you guys a little context for why do we even need to cleanse or detox? Don't we have organs that do that for us on a daily basis? And why is this even something that we should be thinking about? So we have to talk about our toxic load and our toxic burden. And so since World War II, we've had just an onslaught of new synthetic chemicals released. And sadly, they're not very well tested for safety. So they're tested in a very controlled environment using only one chemical at a time. Often they're not tested on humans, and they're tested on adults and most commonly men. So women and children with smaller bodies have a different toxic burden from the same chemical load. Another thing that is not considered is the combination of different toxins and how that might affect us differently. For instance, we know that smoking increases our risk of lung cancer by 10 times. And we know that asbestos exposure increases our risk of lung cancer by 5 times. But if you are a smoker and have asbestos together, your increased risk is 55 times greater for lung cancer. And that's just one example of how these toxic chemicals kind of act as like a soup that our body has to process and get rid of, mostly through our liver. We want to make sure that our emunctories are open. Hey, Joes, is there that slide?
Erin, I think Erin's running the slideshow. If she can bring up the first of Dr. Rose's slides.
Awesome.
So that's a big word, emunctories. What's that? Can you tell people?
Oh gosh. It's one of my favorite old-fashioned naturopathic terms. So could we start with the other slide first, the full bucket? Yeah. So I just like to explain this in a very simple concept, to think about your body as a bucket. And we're born with a fairly empty bucket, although we do have some residual sludge, I call it, at the bottom of our bucket that came from our environmental exposures in utero from our mother. And but then we're born, and throughout our life we get different toxins from different areas, and that can include mental emotional toxins, things that are included in our food, our cleaning supplies, all these different, the air we breathe, the water we drink, and it all goes into our body as a bucket. And so oftentimes my patients will come to me in their 30s or 40s, and they'll have these indeterminate symptoms like fatigue or achiness or skin problems or digestive complaints that don't really have a diagnosis. And we talk about, well, your bucket is overflowing. So next slide, please. One of the things that natural medicine is really good at is draining the bucket. So instead of having an overflowing bucket, we want a bucket that's flowing and allowing our toxins that we're exposed to, because we're not going to be able to eliminate all toxins, to get out of our body. And the way we get things out is called our emunctories. So there are all our organs of elimination. So during a detox or a cleanse, we're doing both. We're trying to reduce the amount of toxins that go into our body, and we're trying to open the drain wider so that our body can get rid of stuff. If you've ever heard or experienced a detox reaction, that's basically somebody who stirred up all the toxins in their body without having their emunctories open. And so they were feeling more toxic than they were before the cleanse. So that's why we really want to prep you guys to start now with a few basic practices that are going to help you have open emunctories once we start the detox process and start mobilizing those toxins to release. So if you look at all the organs here that are involved, you can kind of imagine different ways we could do that. Number one, make sure you're drinking your water. Sometimes people are chronically dehydrated, and when they start drinking the right amount of water, it feels overwhelming and they feel like they're peeing all the time, and so they give up on it real quickly. So you might start maybe gradually increasing your water. Or I also like people to know that when you do start drinking more water, you do urinate more, but it equalizes after a few days, and your body stops retaining water, and you feel lighter, and you actually start feeling thirsty again, and your body comes into more balance with its water. So the general recommendation is half your body weight in ounces. So for a 100-pound person, 50 ounces of water. And if you're super active or sweat a lot, like I take a sauna quite frequently, then you want to add more water to your routine. Of course, we love to add the citrus oils to the water to help our liver just gently open up the liver emunctory. And then we want to make sure we're pooping, right? Who's loving the doTERRA fiber? It's so good. You could start that now to make sure your bowels are moving. And then the other thing I really want to make sure everybody knows is if you're not already taking the full dose of the Lifelong Vitality Pack, you're going to want to start that as soon as possible to get your body ready to be on the full dose for the whole cleanse. So depending on your age, your health, how toxic you are, you might want to start with half a dose for a week or so and just see how that feels, because with those vitamins, we're upregulating all of our emunctories. So you're opening things up as we go and nourishing those cells that maybe haven't been nourished in a while. So you might notice some change in your bowels. That's normal. You probably will notice a change in your energy getting better. And then up it to the full dose after a week or two if everything feels fine. If you start on the half a dose and you notice an increase in toxicity symptoms, you might just back it down to a quarter dose and just take it gradually. Was there anything else important for prep that you wanted me to add, Josie?
No, that was fantastic. I mean, you covered so much great information. So thank you, Louise. Wow. Okay, I love it. So we set the stage for these monk trees and really helping, right? I love that idea of the bucket, and we're decreasing the things coming in and we're opening the things going out. And so I'm going to move right on to Asha McLaughlin. Welcome. And so part of, we have the supplements, we have the oils that we work with, but there's this whole, and there's, the diet and the food. There's this whole other aspect to a cleanse that is all of the mental, emotional, things that also, we're not just cleansing with our pooping and our peeing and all the physical things, right? Our cleansing is happening on energetic levels and emotional levels. And so I'd like Asha to talk a little more about that and all the other kind of, when we say self-care practices that are really helping to support all of these levels, the monk trees and all of the energetic levels and the emotional levels as well. So thank you, Asha.
Hi, everybody. I thought Dr. Vivian's not going next. Nope. Change that up. Yeah.
Did I go? Oh, I thought you were next.
Okay.
I'd like, why don't we do this? And then Vivian and Contessa are really going to talk about why now and what's so amazing about spring.
Hi, everybody. My name is Asha. I'm so happy to be with you. I'm super passionate about, I'm calling it a reboot. I try not to use the word cleanse because I think so many people think they know what it is and they don't want to do it. And so that resistance sometimes can play into how we approach this process, which, to be honest, I think, couldn't we all use a reboot after the last 2 years, right? No matter where you're at with your diet, with your energy, with what we've metabolized, what we've been navigating, right? There's a lot going on right now in the world, and maybe even in your household. So I love helping people with emotional wellness and get really real with their being, how they're feeling, not just physically, but energetically, emotionally, and so on. So Erin, go ahead, you can pop up that first slide for me. That'd be great. So as we move through the process of doing our Healthy You reboot or Healthy You cleanse, however you want to look at it, we're also going to ask ourselves, what are we doing? What are we doing to support ourselves right now? Instead of just trying to manage my household, my family, my pets, whatever's going on, my work, your livelihood, what am I doing for myself? How am I helping support myself emotionally, physically, and spiritually? That's our baseline, right? This is the basis with how we're entering. So this is just a question I'm asking you to jot down or think about, contemplate this for later. Go ahead, you can go to the next slide. So we're going to talk about emotional wellness, right? One of the best ways I feel to get really real with ourselves is to get present. I love this picture on the left-hand side of the slide, past, present, future, like how to get really present with ourselves, real time and space, in this breath, how am I feeling? What do I need, right? So during the cleanse, I'll be helping to guide us with different practices. Mindfulness, breathwork practices, we'll do some meditations occasionally, and then I love for people to do whatever makes them feel good with exercise. I love yoga and qigong, but maybe for you it's walking, maybe it's running, maybe it's cycling. Whatever it is, great. These are the things we're going to want to have, just as important as a lifelong vitality, right? We also need to lower our stress levels and feel really grounded and safe for this process. We're going to work on adrenal support, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Another great way to boost our emotional state is by diffusing, right? It's the fastest way to affect our emotions is aromatically, going right into the olfactory and to the limbic system in the brain, right? Our emotional seat. So putting the diffuser on, or maybe even just dropping a drop in the palm of your hand and making your own personal diffuser. Doing this a few times a day to help support yourself is great. And then occasionally I'm going to pop on the group and teach us a different Chinese medicine point paired with an essential oil. These are going to be different points that can support us emotionally through the cleanse process. So some of them might be for digestion, others might be for mood, like that. Go ahead, Erin, you can skip to the next one. So what are the oils? What are oils that help us with stress? I made this slide a while back, and the chemical constituent that's really good for helping us metabolize and lower stress is linalool. We always think of lavender, right, as being such a great linalool charged plant. But look at magnolia. It's 71% linalool. So it's almost double lavender in terms of having that ability to help us with stress management. Basil's also fantastic, and coriander. So these are some plants that you might want to have on hand. If you don't have them yet, maybe you could get them ordered to support yourself during this process, right? We want to stay in this really great, really grounded, calm, conscious place as we navigate our cleanse. By the way, these can be used topically, aromatically, and even internally. Go ahead, Erin. And then self-care, right? Everybody's favorite. Some people leave it till Sunday. Other of us, we try and weave them in to our everyday life. So we're going to talk a lot about what practices we can add in during our reboot cleanse to support ourselves. I already spoke about things like exercise and breath work, but there's also mindset. You know, how are we thinking about what we're doing? Affirmations, mantras, staying present, and of course, deeply nourishing ourselves, not only with the supplements, as Dr. Rose mentioned, but also with these practices. These practices are nourishing, right? In a different way. How's your energy? Sometimes when, and if you choose to be one of those people that is eliminating things from your diet, for example, I'm going to cut out sugar. That's a big reboot for my brain and my system, right? So some of us might feel a dip in our energy. How can we bring that back up? What can I do to bring my energy back up and maintain it and not feel like I'm crashing, right? We have tips for that. I love the practice of dry brushing. If you're new to it, there's a little picture of a brush right in the upper left-hand corner of that slide. That's a fantastic brush, something like that, with soft bristles. You can see the illustration. We brush basically in the direction toward our heart, right? Up the arms, up the legs, the belly. You can go down from your neck. This is such a great practice. This goes from years back in my study with Ayurveda. Helps us with circulation, helps us slough off dead skin cells, it helps and nourishes the nervous system, and it's great to encourage lymphatic drainage, right? Draining the bucket. This is a great practice to support that. Another practice that I absolutely love, and it's a major game changer, especially when we're rebooting the gut and the microbiome in the gut, is a castor oil pack. Now, you may not have done this before. I have a fantastic video that I can teach you exactly how to do it, but I promise you, if you do it once, you're going to be hooked like I was. Right, Louise? It's like so deeply nourishing, calming, and grounding. I remember the first time I did it, I thought, oh, I'll just be here for an hour. After 2 hours, I was like, do I have to come out? Like I was really, it took me next level relaxation. And then, of course, we can never underestimate the power, the transforming power of good sleep, right? Everybody struggles with it a little bit here and there, right? That's normal. But we have some tips to help you really let yourself sleep better during this process again of elimination. And of course, we're going to use our oils. I'm going to teach you a breath work that you can do before bed. We all know the tip. It's really important to get off the screens an hour or two before you're ready to go to bed, right? So we're not flashing the light that goes right into the perineal gland that try and tells your brain it's awake time when you're trying to go to sleep. So lots of goodies to look forward to in terms of support as you go through the reboot cleanse, the Healthy You cleanse. and I will certainly be there to help you out. Thanks, Erin.
All right. Oh gosh, isn't this so exciting? I love this. I love everyone's wisdom and all that we have. All right, we're going to continue along because we have more great wisdom, like these little power pack nuggets from people. So much great stuff, Asha. Thank you. So Vivian is an acupuncturist and doctor of Chinese medicine, and there's this whole concept of, right, the elements and how they relate with the seasons. And so there's this wood element relating to spring, which then relates to the liver and gallbladder, if I'm correct. And she's gonna elucidate this to all of us, because if you've seen any of my cleanse presentations, I have this really hokey slide that I put in the presentation like 6 times. And it's a big picture of a liver with a crown on it. And then I say, who's the king of detox, detoxing for us? And so it's the liver, if you didn't know, and the gallbladder, right there with the liver. So Vivian, take us away and tell us why do we pick spring when we have a choice? Like, why is that so wonderful for doing this kind of work?
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. I think that is one of the best questions there is. And even you wonder, like, where did spring cleaning come from with your house, you know? Well, this to me is the absolute genius of Chinese medicine, which dates back somewhere between 476 and 221 BC. I mean, that's how old the theory of all of the elements came from. And this is called the theory of the 5 elements. And we have 5 elements, which are wood, fire, and earth, metal, and water. And they have correspondences that relate to the organs. And if you want to bring that slide up, Erin, that shows all the elements and the organ correspondences, so people can see kind of what I'm talking about. With the wood element, we have the liver and gallbladder. And what was observed in the creation of understanding the 5 elements is it was the observation of nature and how the seasons change and how it affected plants, and in effect relating that to the human body. And it was just absolute genius to relate it then to organ systems. And so I'm going to kind of follow this chart so it's easier to follow what I'm talking about. So first, I want to just talk about the nature of wood in and of itself, and draw an analogy to wood. If you think of the redwood trees, for instance, I visited the redwoods this summer, and I was talking to one of the park rangers, and I didn't know this before, but she was talking about how the redwoods don't know how to die. They just keep growing upward to reach the heavens. So their nature is to grow upward and out, and that is the energetic of the wood to rise and expand, which it will be consistent with a lot of oils that are good for the liver, like lemon oil. Anyway, the reason why they will die eventually is because the root system can't support their desire to keep going towards the light. So when you think about spring, which is the seasonal correspondence, and like the transition, like in winter, everything goes inside and hibernates and stays warm. In spring, it's the coming out, the rebirth, and like the seeds start opening up and coming out of the ground. And so it's this regeneration, a season of regeneration, and kind of going towards the light. The liver is the main organ for detoxification, and it has its paired organ. In Chinese medicine, we call the solid organs the yin organs, and then the hollow organs, the yang organs, and the gallbladder is the paired organ for the liver. The liver will make bile and store it in the gallbladder. And then the seasonal relationship is wind. And, you know, in the spring, we have the storms that bring on the wind. And what's interesting a lot of times with, even if you're outside and it's very, very windy, after a while that can start affecting you. You can get, if it's too much, you can get a little bit irritated. And I'm going to go into that just in a little bit. And then the color relationship is green. And so in what that means basically is, in terms of food, the liver during this time, and really any time, will love all green foods, all green foods. So, you know, one thing about like the doTERRA greens, some people, you know, some people have a hard time getting in their greens. So what's so great is just to have a bag and a scoop and put it, you know, put it in drink, and then you've got it, you know. What I want to talk about in relationship to the liver in terms of its function, so that you understand a little bit about its importance, is one of the things that it governs in Chinese medicine is the harmonious flow of Chi. And that is a very big job. And to make it easy to understand, how you might contemplate what restricted Chi will do to the body. Think of a child, like for instance, in line at the grocery store or in a bank. A child will just spontaneously burst into dance or burst into song. Adults don't do that because they've learned to pull in that chi. It's not appropriate at that time, you know, but a child, what is so beautiful is the most beautiful, I think, representation of unrestricted flow of chi. And adults have to learn to constantly be kind of monitoring that desire to let that chi go out. So in relationship to talking about what's important to keep our liver in balance, aside from you know, detoxing and being careful about what we eat and put in our body, we also have to think about the movement of chi. And if you're just sitting around all day, that chi is going to get stagnant and you can have a tendency to get depressed. So if you start noticing that, like if you're sitting in front of the computer all day, go out and get in the sun and go for a walk or take a yoga class. That movement of chi is very important. And then look down to, I just want to relate this, the sense organ that relates to the wood element is the eyes. And there's actually a channel from the liver that goes up into the eyes. So if you're someone who is staring at your computer all day, think about like that fixed motion of the eye just going straight ahead, and you'll get eye strain. So another way of affecting the liver and the movement of chi is stop looking at your computer and do like some circular or up and down and back and forth eye exercises to get that movement also going in the liver. That way you can affect the health of your liver through your eyes. In relation, if you go in I'm kind of going down to the bottom chart. I've kind of jumped around a little bit. The emotional correspondence to the liver is anger. And I'm going to expand upon that a little bit because I think that's a little bit of a simplified, limited way of looking at it. But when there is sort of an excess in the liver, it is very common for people to exhibit being angry, but that has a few variations on the theme. One can be like, you know, you're irritated, and that's sort of like the before stage of a full-blown anger. But the other thing too to look at in relationship to that chi not flowing smoothly, and if you're pulling in an irritation or anger, pulling it in and making it stuck, then it'll turn inward into like a depressive state. And that's what you'll see a lot of times with conditions like PMS, where there's such a close relationship between the liver storing blood and the relationship of the blood to the uterus. You'll see during that time when that organ is being called upon to supply blood to the uterus and that chi is kind of stuck, you're going to see choppy emotions and possibly then cramping for the period because that chi isn't flowing smoothly. Then in the positive way, if you think about a seed under the ground or a woman giving birth or a bud opening up, what kind of energy does that take for that to occur? It's very similar to that. If you think of that anger, like that opening up, but like what is like the scream of a woman giving birth, like that power pushing that life out. It's the same as a seed breaking out of the hull. There's a lot of wonderful power there in it, and it needs that liver energy to bring forth that life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I love that you're ending with that, because you know, as we've said, it's cleansing and working with these, it's on all of our levels, all of our bodies. And emotionally, if some anger and frustration or just like cranky feelings, that definitely can come up during a cleansing process, and that's appropriate. So sort of we have a lot of ways to work with that. We've been talking about that, but sort of seeing this as part of the process. Mm-hmm. Working with those energies. Thank you, Vivian. I'm going to move right on to Contessa Beth. So this is, we want to end here in our panel, really getting back to the plants and the plant wisdom and our plant medicine. And so Contessa, really, you're going to share with us this idea of that the plants have cycles, and they have plant cycle stories and season cycles, and how we can begin to kind of look at different ways of why would we be reaching for and working with one oil, one plant versus another. So thank you so much, Contessa, for joining us.
Thank you very much. That was such great. So many things that Asha and Vivian said are like exactly leading up to this, about how we can use the knowledge of the plants and their life cycles in order to help us stay present with what we're doing. And when we're doing difficult things like cleansing maybe, or just transitioning from one season to another, which can bring so many difficulties with it and strain. And so there's often a lot of opposite energies coming together that we're having to deal with. So going from kind of like the stagnant death winter to this, all of a sudden, this fire, this heat, this water, all these new elements coming into play, and you're kind of, those elements are clashing together. We often get so off balance. So looking back at what's presently happening in the life cycle of the plants can be so helpful. I have an old school drawing instead of a slide, but I just wanted to show you this, like in our, as we're going into this cleanse, right? I think sometimes we go a little overboard and want to go from total stagnation, which was winter, into the blossoming flower, and we get so much energy and everything. But really, we're just in this very tiny 1 to 3 week period of spring and of cleansing. And we're really just going from kind of where we are now, which is like the seed under the ground that has just started to feel some fire within its body, that will eventually give it the fire to sprout above ground, to sprout its first seed leaf, and then to sprout its true leaves. And this is kind of like what is happening for a lot of the plant kingdom during spring. And to really focus on, like, this is all that we need to focus on. This is the journey we need to take right now. And to leave the flowering and the blossoming, and that's the fun stuff, the fruiting part of our lives, that's next season. And presently, we really have to stay with kind of like the hard, there's a lot, like Vivian said, the birthing of a new life is angry, bitter, hard, painful. There's a lot of things to deal with and difficulties. So kind of like staying present, and that we are just in these little stages of moving on, and how cleansing can help us get through here. So I just wanted to, so presently, for a lot of us, depending on our environment, we're in the seed stage still. We're underneath the ground, we're cold, and we're wet. But for a lot of seeds, and especially a lot of the plants we look to in spring and for cleansing, that cold, stagnant period is absolutely necessary in order to get to this next phase. So kind of realizing how important it is to feel those angry and bitter feelings. And then we're going to start to use those bitter herbs to kind of, we're going to take them in and help them to move the bitterness out, the stagnation out, and all of these things. So I just wanted to show that to remind you of, like, sometimes cleansing can seem so huge and overwhelming, but it's really just this really small stage of going from underneath the stagnant seed to getting our true leaves, which is the space when we're just ready to kind of be transplanted into our new home and to start thinking about flowering. And listening to the stories of plants can give us directions on where to go. So listening to the story of the season, its cyclical themes. So we're just coming into, like when Ebola started, that's kind of like the cycle where the heat finally starts to develop inside the seed. And we first start to feel some heat, but we're still under the ground, we're in the dark. But then heat, fire, water, circulation, activation, revitalization, the sun comes closer to us, bringing more heat and light. And at that same time, listening to the plant story, which is like going from contraction of being tight in that seed to expanding and sprouting into new life, being born. And that huge amount of energy and spark that spontaneously has to happen in order for that life to come forward. And the amount of water, all of a sudden we were in kind of like ice and contraction, and now we're expanding into this flow and water and returning to liquid and new growth. And then listening to our own transitions, so kind of paying attention to these things, the season, what the plants are doing in that season, and then also how does our emotions, our physicalness kind of mirror the plants and the season. We're coming out of hibernation, stagnancy, rest, darkness, illness, cold, everything. It was much easier to hide and hold and hibernate in the winter times. And now all of a sudden there's a lot more light and life being whirled around. And you might be feeling still kind of caught in that darkness, wanting to hide. And it's really difficult to kind of sprout yourself out of that energy of just wanting to be still and stagnant. Like we kind of just got used to it.
Mhm.
Now it's springtime and it's time to accept this new energy, which can bring up a lot of bitterness. And that bitterness leads you to all of the plants that are sprouting in spring, all of our deep dark greens, our stinging nettle, our cleavers, our, oh, now they're all, I'm losing all of them. Dandelion greens, our bitters, which are great for the liver. All the greens that are just sprouting up, purple dead nettle, sorrel, violets, all of these are bitters. And if you look at the oil blends that come with the cleanse kit, you will notice, I noticed that most of the oils that they are in the combination of the zendocrine and the DDR prime are a lot of bitters. Geranium leaves, rosemary, lemon, of course, our major bitter. So many, pretty much what is being birthed in the plant kingdom, all that bitterness is also matching our coming out of this dark stagnant period. And as well for the seasons, we're coming out of a stagnancy. We're also coming into the hungry gap, which in many places, when spring comes, the reserves of food, nutrient dense things are at an all-time low. And so it's a great time to look at the season, and the only things available are these small green sprouts that are coming out of the ground. You might not recognize them or know what they are, but they're packed full of nutrient dense minerals, which reinvigorate the body. My favorite example of that for right now in February to April is the sap coming up from the tree roots. So maple season, birch season, you have birch sap and maple sap coming up from the roots and traveling up the long trunks of the tree to nourish the leaves in spring, and we can catch that nourishment on the way up. And it's interesting because I think maple and the tree saps are some of the earliest nutrients and medicine that come alive, and it also happens to be in the form of water. So just looking toward, like, go outside and just use your senses to kind of taste, touch, smell, feel, like what is coming up out of the ground. And often you'll find most of the things are bitters, and also the sweets and the hydrating, packed full of water from having to come to life so quickly. So listening to the plant's life cycle stories leads us to kind of how we can best utilize their power. And when you look at a lot of the things the cleanse incorporates, in zendocrine, geranium, cilantro, juniper berry, tangerine peel, rosemary, almost every single one of them is a bitter. And then in the DDR prime, we have melaleuca, lemongrass, frankincense, wild orange, litsea, thyme, clove, and summer savory. And I think it's interesting, around cleansing time, I grew up, the first cleanse I ever heard of was the Master Cleanse, which is lemon, maple syrup, and cayenne. And I think about that and I'm like, oh, if I redid that again, I would just want to use the maple sap, like not that actual syrup. But we have the bitter with the heat, with the nourishing, revitalizing maple sap, and all things we're trying to do with the doTERRA cleanse.
Tessa, in the chat, there's been talk about, like, wait a minute, is copaiba, frankincense, myrrh, those are all oils that are sap, basically. They're the tears. They're the
resin. Yes.
Sap, you like using those in that energy. There it is in
totally
oils. Yeah. And we've been asked, like, talking about what the different oils people are considering bitters, and kind of and everything. So as that, thank you. That's beautiful, bringing these concepts and kind of like seeing how this comes together with Chinese medicine and all of and
Yeah.
Munctories and then like Western cleansing, all of it. So did you have any last points or I didn't, was that?
I just wanted to close out and just say, I mean, I totally get, I start to run away with the idea of cleansing and wanting to, I love process. So like to be really present with the process and just focus on cleansing, revitalizing before we begin the work of the blossoming, the flowering, and the fruiting, to really try to stay present in this really baby stage of spring.
I am full. I would like I feel that nutrient bud spring fullness. So I know I don't know. Let me see. Asha, you said you had one thing, a thought you wanted to kind of bring in and share as a closing remark.
Yes, I got inspired when I heard you, Tessa Beth. Sorry, I messed up your name. Contessa Beth.
That's good.
That was so lovely. Thank you for that. I just wanted to say that this group is a container. And it's an incredible support we are for each other. You know, it's the difference between taking a yoga class online and showing up and being in the room with other people, right? You're going to show up differently. You're going to do more. You're going to do better. And so that's one of the beauties of this offering with this group, is how we hold each other in place and support each other. So I just wanted to bring that as just as a reminder, is that, you know, we're doing this together. You're not alone. And it's